So American Eagle Gold. I think that we're Canada's most exciting porphyry discovery, but just don't take my word for it. Look at some of the results we had. Back 2317, our last drill hole had 302 meters of 1.09% copper equivalent from surface. And I'm pretty confident that this is just the beginning. And what I want to do with this webinar is explain the blue sky we have and the huge opportunity to really build a world-class size deposit. Before I jump into it, I want to thank a follower of the company. His name's Nate Smith. This is his Twitter handle. He's put out a lot of great material on it, and I've had a lot of questions about it. So I just want to kind of dumb down it and condense it a bit. But he made a really good post on February 14th, a 45-minute video, and he went completely through our IP study. So I encourage you to watch that whole thing. But please watch this first if you haven't, and it's just 10 minutes long, and then quickly bring it through it soup to nuts to try to explain everything. So the big issue with American Eagle Gold, personally for me, is our market cap. I think we're too small for what we've been hitting. But we're like a tree falling in the middle of the forest. We're in a tough market, and hopefully we're getting out of it soon. People don't even know your stock exists to even invest in it. But we have everything a great junior exploration company needs. We have grade, we have scale, we have location, and we're fully funded. We're fully funded for a 2024 program. So what else are you really looking for? The big thing that I want to explain is this most recent drill hole, 2317. It got attention of the market. It's a Chilean hole in BC. In this market, you can't just have good results, you need spectacular results. And why you need spectacular results is you need those investors who are only paying attention to their own plays to turn around, not spend 10 minutes to look at you, maybe spend 10 hours. And from them talking about it, other people learn about it. And this is a Chilean hole, and this is what made people really pay attention. This hole is great in the Congo, it's great in Chile, and it's fantastic in interior BC that has amazing infrastructure. You can drive right to our property. It's a little discouraging though, because everyone looked at that high grade hole, they asked about it, but we had 17 previous long drill holes, deep drill holes at our property. And 17 of those previous 16 drill holes before 17 hit what I think most exploration companies would deem as high grade, something that they would put on the title and be proud of. So, it didn't start with 2317. I think 2317 made people look at those other high grade drill holes that we had. But don't just focus on those. There's other holes that were deemed as, moderate, call it 0.25 over 700 meters, that really tell a lot more of the story. But with that drill hole, you got a lot more technical people coming into the story. That's why you're seeing our stocks down pretty strong in the last little while. We're double since January. So let's look at 2311, 2308. They're in the south zone. It's a copper gold zone. Those are both high grade holes. 2308 was 775 meters of 0.5% copper equivalent from surface, and 2311 was 500 meters of 0.62% copper equivalent. Now, towards the end of the season, we did some IP. We had some historical IP on our property. It was helpful, but we want to look after our pennies. But we were able to get a free mob for some IP, so we decided to we decided to do some IP towards the end of the season. So we did in the end of September. We actually didn't get the IP results till we were on hole 16. So what we did is we took 2311, 2308, and we took the IP. And what you see right here is, a slice looking north. It's called a cross section of our IP. And what you see there is a IP shoulder. So an IP shoulder is where the chargeability transitions from low to high, and that's that pinkish to red area. And what we did is we put those holes, 2308, 2311, over this IP, and look what we got. The highest grade that we got on 2311, 2308 happened to intersect with this shoulder. And, sometimes IP works, sometimes it doesn't. It can be used as a great targeting tool, but it doesn't always work. But in this case, it seemed to work. So we want to prove this thesis, and that's why we had 2317. We wanted to drill a hole right across the shoulder. And if these high-grade areas were true, where we hit 2308, 2311, well, then 2317, if we drilled down the shoulder, would give us our best drill results yet on the property. So we drilled 2317, and look what happened. It gave us our best results on the property, over 300 meters of 1%, 98 meters downhole, absolutely fantastic. And we left. We were done drilling. We actually didn't get these results until January, so we weren't 100% sure that we would even see them. And that's what's really changing the game. I think a lot of people are not only looking at those results, but they're actually looking for an entry point because they realize that we are hot on the trail for this targeting. And the probability of us hitting some great results are actually a lot higher than most. because we seem to prove it already in 2317. Now, where it gets really interesting is, this year we want to prove this, what I call it a bench and shoulder, thesis. So the shoulder is that part going, up and down, and that bench is kind of coming to surface. But if this proves right, our high grade mineralization comes from depth and it wraps all the way around west to surface. And that's absolutely amazing. It's a complete game changer. So we want to prove that this year. But, as Nate explained, and as our geologists know, we sort of already retroactively proved this thesis. Let me walk you through it. So if you look at 22201, that was the first drill hole we ever put out, and it was booming from surface, 1.02% copper equivalent from surface through the first 125 meters. Decent hole, almost 900 meters of 0.37% copper equivalent. And lo and behold, we have some really good high grade at depth, 64 meters of 0.78. The problem the market saw, they saw this high grade at depth. It was too far away from the stuff at surface. So they kind of discounted that. Now, fast forward a year and a half, and you got this shoulder and bench thesis. Well, wouldn't you know it, that high grade that we hit at the bottom is where that shoulder is starting to build out. So that's kind of coming in with our whole thesis that the high grade does come at surface. So instead of that high grade actually being at depth and trying to connect it to the very top of the 125 meters of over 1%, it's actually part of a different system. And it comes all the way from the bottom and hopefully wraps all the way top to the west to surface. Now let's see if we proved it again. That 2202, another great hole, 300 meters of 0.61% copper equivalent from surface. And again, we hit 150 meters of 0.6% at depth. And like hole one, the market discounted it. It was too far away from the stuff at surface. Now, fast forward again, another year and a half, you put this IP on there and you overlay the assays. Well, this proves again, like number one, where we hit that high grade wasn't part of that same system that we saw at surface in 01 and 02. It actually looks like it's part of that same system that we hit in 2317. We're just hitting the bottom of that shoulder. So that's really interesting. It just doesn't end with two. Let's go 2204, another great hole. That was our second best hole of our 2022 program, 527 meters of 0.45% copper equivalent. A lot of it's high grade copper. Where do we really start to pick up steam? Right where we started to hit that shoulder, 185 meters of 0.7% copper equivalent. Unbelievable. Let's go to 2312 again. This is probably our second best hole we've ever drilled on the property. We drilled it this year. And our highest grade, not quite as high as 2317, but it just skirted right across the shoulder. And again, you got 540 meters of 0.61. So we're just proving it retroactively that this bench and shoulder thesis that we has is pretty darn accurate. And we do it again. Look at 2313. The problem is when people look at these results, they look at your whole interval. They don't have time to start peeling the onion, but this is where the engineers, the geologists really start to get advantage in this capital markets. So the average retailer, they see 606 meters of 0.23. But what the smart people, the smart, mining guys see, where's that high grade? So hitting that 2317 allows you to focus and take that second step, spend more time. And when you look at it, where's that higher grade? 103 meters of 0.54. It's going right through that shoulder. Proved it again. 2314, same thing. People overlook it. 729 meters of 0.3% copper equivalent. But there's 212 meters of 0.51. Where is it? Where is it going? It's cutting right across that shoulder. Again, retroactively proven. 2316, 687 meters of 0.28, the whole hole. But where's the high grade? It's close to the bottom. It's on an angle, 77 meters of 0.54. Again, proving that thesis. So when people looked at 2316, they go, well, the highest part of that grade is at the very bottom. It doesn't come to surface. Well, don't worry about the top of 2316. What system did it cut into? And it cut into this IP shoulder. And again, we're proving it out. So, I kind of proved that we retroactively proved that IP shoulder, but now we'll come back to 2309. So this is the most exciting hole that we drilled in our 2 years. And when Tech came on our property, they didn't ask us for much, but they said, we want you to drill one hole. We want you to drill 2309, and we want you to drill it because it'll prove that there's world-class scale on this property. So it was approximately 700 meters away from any historical drill hole, and we drilled it, and we weren't sure if we're going to hit anything. And lo and behold, we hit 0.4% copper equivalent from surface, 120 meters, and 435 meters of 0.25. Absolutely amazing. It showed that there's smoke. We're pretty sure of what we've seen on the west side. There's going to be fire somewhere nearby. Now we bring this IP shoulder into it. As you can see, his IP shoulder, what I showed before with his IP shoulder, it wraps around, coming to surface, going west. But this IP shoulder is completely symmetrical over to the east. So what we're seeing over to the west, exact same over to the east. We just happen to drill 2309, slightly the wrong location. And had we just taken maybe 100, 150 meters to the south and drilled in the same orientation, we very well could have hit very similar results that we hit in 2317. Look at where those question marks, those are the opportunities. If we hit those, what is that? It's called a $100 million drill hole. So we're just proving the thesis. So if we prove this thesis out, which we plan to do in 2024, which we technically already retroactively proved, we can show that we don't just have high grade in the south and the north. We have opportunity to grow it all the way over to the east, wrap around to the north, and a potential inner tube of high grade mineralization all around this whole deposit. And forget about that, it comes to surface. But I know one thing, it doesn't rain copper, and there is some source from this copper somewhere underneath. And during this drill program, we're hopefully going to vector into it. And if we hit that, watch out below.